Hi my lovelies, and welcome back to my channel. Today we'll be talking about the Radium Girls, the ghosts of World War One. We know what happened with women in World War One. We all know that. They had to take the jobs and responsibilities of men to support them while they were at war. They had to take work in factories, in farming, in ammunition making, to make sure that the men had enough food and ammunition at war to protect us. But one group of women that we all forget about are the Radium Girls. These girls worked as dial painters, and they were responsible for making sure that the clocks and dials of men at war will glow in the dark. I mean, that sounds like a pretty damn good job. You just paint dials, they glow in the dark, and it paid amazing. The pay was amazing. It was much greater than any other person, than any other woman was getting paid at the time. So for a lot of poor working class women, it was the deal of a century. I mean, they could get so much money for painting these dials. What they didn't know is that they were ingesting poison in their bodies. And we all know that radium is extremely poisonous, and yes, it kills cancer, but it kills us in the process. We knew that radium was bad when the discoverer, Marie Curie, died from burns of radium. But at this time and age, in that period of time, small amounts of radium were considered to be beneficial for you because they thought, oh, it kills cancer, it must be really good for you. And basically it was #trending the magic of radium at that time. Everything had radium in it. They were advertising tonic water that you could buy and drink to make yourself more beautiful, to make yourself youthful. They were advertising that it could even increase your lifespan. It was everywhere, posters and posters and posters of how beneficial this radium was, how good it was for you. So the women didn't really think twice about going and working as dial painters. This luminous, beautiful paint was eventually going to kill them. And even when the girls would ask, is this dangerous? Because you would be ingesting it basically, and I'll explain how in just a moment. They were told, no, it's safe for you. It'll actually make your cheeks rosier. It'll make you glow, and it will help you even get better dates. And obviously at that time it seemed really good. What I think annoys me of all of this is that the men that were dealing with radium at the time, they were covered from head to toe on like these lead cloaks to protect them from the radium. But again, the magic of radium at that time, small amounts, perfectly okay. So how did these girls ingest this radium? When they were painting the dials, they had small brushes, and they would basically have to lick the brush and then dip and paint. So, again, lick, dip, paint, lick, dip, paint. And that was the process. So every time they were licking that brush, they were ingesting small amounts of radium into their bodies. They didn't know what could happen to them. The magic of radium was this whole idea was so crazy that the women would actually want to be luminous. So they would paint their teeth until it glowed in the dark. So when they went out on a date, they would impress their boyfriend with these teeth that were glowing. They would paint themselves. Even if they didn't, they would be glowing when they went home, when they finished their shift. And basically everything was going for them that way. But obviously what happened? They started to rot from the inside and out. The side effects started coming up. Women were getting sick and they couldn't understand why they were getting sick. They were starting to get ulcers. Their teeth would fall. Their limbs would ache. And one woman in particular, the first one that died from this, Mollie Maggia, she started with a sore tooth. She was like, my tooth hurts. Went to the doctor, and they said, oh no, it's fine. Don't worry about it. It's in your head. Just take some aspirin. It will go away. And then her teeth started to fall out one by one. And underneath that, like, she started to get gum disease to the point that she had giant ulcers. They were like blackened. And then what happened? That she started oozing blood, like pus in blood. And that she had to walk with like this handkerchief, and it was just seeping. And then because she was rotting, her breath just smelled bad. And when she went and she was like, something seriously wrong with me, like I keep losing my teeth. And she went to the doctor and to the dentist. And what he did, he was prodding inside her mouth. And you won't believe this, but her jawbone, like all of this, click, just fell off. He didn't do it to like, it broke, it disintegrated. He didn't do it because out of surgery or anything. It's just click, it just broke off. So now what is known is like Radium Jaw, because it just fell and broke off into pieces. So as you can imagine, you think that this is the worst it's gonna get, right? You think this is it, this is the worst thing that's gonna happen to me. Hopefully I'll start getting better. Can't get worse than this. Well, it did. It did for Mollie. It got incredibly bad. Her whole body was aching. She became incapacitated. She couldn't walk. She was unable to walk. And the doctor keeps saying, no, nothing's wrong. Just take aspirin and we'll go away. Eventually, Mollie died in 1922 at the age of 24 years old. She died. And to make it worse, the death certificate says it's because of syphilis. They wrote down on her death certificate that she died from that. And it just shows the cover-up, because the doctors were, the radium company had money. So they were like, we need to cover this up. It can't be from radium. They had a whole business based on radium. So they covered it up and just said that the girl was of ill repute. She got syphilis and she died. It just doesn't seem right. But again, money talks, right? No matter what era. At this time, a girl named Grace, she was a colleague of Mollie. She also started experiencing symptoms. And eventually, like with the ulcers, with the aching limbs, eventually her spine got crushed. Because why? I imagine like acid. That's what came into my head, like the picture of acid just dissolving your bones. And then she had to wear a back brace for the rest of her life after that, because she couldn't walk without it, which is pretty devastating. And obviously the girls started dropping like flies. They started getting sick, they started dying, and then a study was conducted, an independent study was conducted in 1924 to show the links between radium and the girls' deaths. And it proved it. The study proved that there was a link between the two. And the company was outraged to the point that they paid for another study that, and in posted findings, they were saying, no, it's not radium's fault. It's not, it's radium doesn't kill anybody. It's not that. It was pretty sickening. So basically the girls wanted justice, and they started finding that it was very difficult to fight in a society that thought that radium was good for you. And at that time, the girls were being shunned because their reputations were coming into play here. People were assuming that it was just gossip, that the girls were doing it to get money out of radium, that people just wanted to basically say that the girls were of ill repute, that it was something else. It wasn't radium. It wasn't until one man died, one man that worked in the factory, the first male death, that they started taking action about this. They took up the charge. The specialists were like, okay, something's seriously wrong here. So after all of those women died and were getting sick, it wasn't until the first man got sick. How ridiculous is that? In 1925, Dr. Harrison Martin conducted studies, and he was determined to prove that radium was the cause for the women's deaths and sicknesses. And he did it. He proved it. He was the one that put a rest to it and said, no, this is it. This is what's happening. And he went on to explain what was actually happening to the women. And he actually basically stated that it's worse because the women were ingesting it, so it was getting absorbed by the bones, and the bones were becoming hollow inside. It was eating them inside. It was basically destroying their bodies because it was surviving inside their body, and it started to eat them. That's the best way I can describe it, to eat them alive. It was incredibly hard for the girls to find someone who would fight for them, because all of the lawyers were basically turning them down. The society was shunning them. No one wanted to speak to them. But Grace was a fighter. And Grace basically, she's the girl that got her spine crushed, just in case you didn't remember. And she basically, and her father was part of the union, so she was a very, very strong person. Even though she was falling apart, she was like, I can't let this happen to other women, because they had another factory in Ottawa, and they were like, we have to put a stop to this. We have to create some awareness. And they managed to find a lawyer in 1927. His name was Raymond Berry, and he took the case. Unfortunately, the girls from New Jersey were basically, they were pushed to settle. They were pushed to settle and shut the case down. So no, they didn't win the case then. But what it did create is that Grace basically sparked this whole thing and put it out, because it created such a commotion that they were like, oh my God, we are dying from this. Because in the beginning, some of the girls were like, I don't want to lose my job over this. I need this money. And then other people in society, they were like, no, I don't want. They just like, if I don't see it, if I don't hear it, it's not true. But it did spark the horror, and people started creating awareness for it. And then on the other side, in Ottawa, in Illinois, Catherine Wolfe, she saw it and she's like, this is basically what's happening to us, because they started to get very sick as well. And she took it upon herself to take action. Her and 5 women decided to go ahead and fight for justice. And she was falling apart. She became bedridden. She started with the same symptoms. It started crawling into her throat, eating her alive. And she actually even had like the whole pieces of jaw broken. Like hers didn't like come off, but like you can pick it and pull it off. But when she took the case, it was in 1938, and America was facing not just America, the whole world was facing the Great Depression. So still, even though it was awareness and even though it was out there, the girls were still shunned by society for taking upon one of the remaining companies that were left, that were giving jobs. They were still scrutinized for this. and they actually managed to find a lawyer. It took them quite some time, but his name was Leonard Grossman. I hope I said that right. But basically he started working for the girls pro bono, and they knew that it was a ticking time bomb. The girls knew that their time was coming. They knew that they were gonna die, and basically they keep getting appeal after appeal after appeal, and they knew they didn't have much time. They knew, they were like, okay, what are we gonna do? The court system was ridiculously slow, and during the case, basically what they did is they actually exhumed Mollie's body, and they found that it was still super radioactive. So it was like still glowing at that time. So what came out of all of this? And after 8 appeals, in 1939, they had victory. They won. And what this did for the future was that it paved a whole new way of protecting workers around the world. The Occupational Safety and Health Commission was established, and in 1949 the law was changed for occupational illness to protect the employers and future dial painters. So it's thanks to them, thanks to their fight, that we as employees are being taken care of, that we can fight, because this was the first group of people that took on a big corporation. I'll leave you guys with that thought, that if we stick together and we fight together, we can accomplish and make change. What are your thoughts on this? Leave your comments below, and if you would like to join my online family, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.